the winter that defeated an emperor, Napoleon's disastrous invasion of Russia. In the summer of 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte, the conqueror who had subdued much of Europe, launched what he considered would be his masterstroke, the invasion of Russia. With an army of over 600,000 men, the largest ever assembled up to that point, the French emperor was confident of victory. However, this campaign would become one of the greatest military disasters in history, marking the beginning of the end of the Napoleonic Empire. The decision to invade Russia was the result of a complex web of political and strategic factors. Napoleon sought to force Tsar Alexander to comply with the continental blockade against Britain and to secure his dominance over Eastern Europe. Confident in his military genius and the superiority of his forces, Napoleon gravely underestimated the challenges he would face. The first strategic error was the timing of the invasion. Although the campaign began in June, the vast Russian territory meant that operations would inevitably extend into winter. Napoleon, accustomed to quick and decisive campaigns, did not adequately anticipate the logistical difficulties of sustaining such a large army in hostile territory for months. As the French army advanced towards Moscow, it encountered a devastatingly effective Russian tactic, the scorched earth policy. The Russians, under the command of General Kutuzov, systematically retreated, destroying crops, livestock, and supplies in their wake. This strategy deprived the French of vital resources and forced them to rely increasingly on extremely extended supply lines. The Battle of Borodino, fought on September 7th, was a Pyrrhic victory for Napoleon. Although the French took the field, they suffered massive losses that they could not afford. When they finally reached Moscow on September 14th, they found a largely abandoned city, soon engulfed in flames, depriving them of the supplies and shelter they desperately needed. Napoleon waited in vain for a Russian surrender that never came. Finally, on October 19th, with winter rapidly approaching, he ordered the retreat. It was here that the real catastrophe began to unfold. The Russian winter, famous for its brutality, fell upon the retreating army with relentless ferocity. Temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius. The soldiers, poorly equipped for such conditions, succumbed to cold, hunger, and disease. Horses died by the thousands, depriving the army of cavalry and vital transport. Meanwhile, Russian Cossacks and partisans constantly harassed the French columns, attacking stragglers and cutting off the already precarious supplies. The crossing of the Berezina River in late November turned into a logistical and human nightmare, with thousands of soldiers drowning or freezing to death. Of the more than 600,000 men who had crossed the Niemen River at the beginning of the campaign, barely 20,000 returned in a condition to fight. Napoleon himself abandoned his army in December, hastily returning to Paris to avoid a coup d'etat. The Russian campaign revealed the limitations of Napoleon's military genius and the vulnerabilities of his empire. His inability to adapt his strategy to the realities of the Russian terrain and climate, combined with his underestimation of Russian determination, proved fatal. This failed invasion not only decimated the French army, but also inspired the other European powers to unite against Napoleon. In the following 2 years, a coalition of European nations would finally defeat the French emperor, leading to his exile on the island of Elba in 1814. Napoleon's Russian campaign remains a classic study in military strategy, illustrating the dangers of arrogance, the importance of logistics, and the power of environmental factors in war. It also highlights how even the most brilliant leaders can make catastrophic mistakes when they underestimate their adversaries and the conditions in which they operate. This disastrous invasion raises fascinating questions about the nature of leadership and decision-making under high-pressure conditions. How do past successes influence our assessment of future risks? What role does psychology play in military and political strategy? Napoleon's Russian campaign reminds us that history often revolves around pivotal moments where the decisions of a few can alter the fate of millions. It invites us to reflect on how today's leaders navigate complex challenges and what lessons we can draw from past mistakes to inform our future decisions.